for May, June the 4th. The first item on our agenda is to approve the minutes from the May 7th, planning board meeting. If all the members of the board have a chance to look over those minutes, and does anybody have any questions or comments regarding them? Would someone like to make a motion that we approve the minutes? Earl? Second? Charlie? Everyone in favor? Aye, any opposed? Moving forward, the next item on our agenda is the Lear Staples special use permit. Amy Rodriguez, are you here? Hi. Yeah, okay, do you want to come on up and,
Okay. I brought my little folks.
that's okay. How are you?
I'm good, how are you?
I am good. Hi, honey, how are you? So, welcome.
Hi, thanks.
Would you like to, kind of give us a brief overview of your special use permit and what you're asking for, an amendment or change to it, and how this is all like come to pass and come to be?
Sure. Thanks. So I have a special use permit already for my property at 256 Cheese Factory. I got that, gosh, almost 10 years ago now. And I do horseback riding lessons, I do sporting. And I'll be honest, back in 2019, I started extending my boarding over to my neighbor's property. At first it was just kind of like, I'm boarding my horses over there. We had kind of an arrangement. It's more of a lease type of deal. I wasn't aware that I needed to amend the special use permit. We're primarily doing boarding, which they were doing before, and I didn't realize. So now that I know that I'm not up to code, we almost exclusively do boarding there with all of the operations still happening at my property, the traffic, the coming and going. I do occasionally have some riders out in the field, but that's what the previous people had been doing as well. So I admit I didn't know I needed a permit, but I just want to make sure that we're now up to code.
Okay, and so, so you have riding rings on your neighbor's property?
No,
No.
we've just been riding like in the field and some of their trail area, and it's seasonal usage, most of the year we're in our indoor arena because it's Rochester, but we do some seasonal riding out there.
Okay, and you said you had a lease with them
Yes.
since
Since
I mean, I
2019.
did
Yeah.
see a letter that they had, that Karen had, signed dated June 3rd, but it didn't, it's
She
really
wrote
not
that-
the it's not really the lease,
I know. Well, and they've been friends of mine since, 2010. We've been friends for a long time. They actually purchased that property after I purchased mine to like be our neighbors, and so we've been so informal with it. We don't really have something like super in writing. So as I was going through with all this, and they've been out of town, they do traveling ministry. They're almost never home. And I found out, I was like, uh-oh, I need to have something like actually signed so that it's legal for me to. extend this.
Right. So getting something from them, like more formal than this, is really not gonna be a problem. I mean,
No.
they're totally in agreement.
Yeah.
And you can either provide, you can either provide like a lease.
Yeah.
An
we can
actual
definitely
lease.
They're actually gonna be here tomorrow in town.
Oh,
And it's like,
you can do that
We can
tomorrow.
sit down and we can all do it, but of course they're here tomorrow, but not today.
That's okay. So if they just like, if you guys like drop a lease, get it notarized, drop it off at the town hall, not a big deal. But then it just like, it just helps us dot our i's, cross our t's, and make sure everything
Of course.
is.
We can do that. We were actually gonna meet tomorrow and chat about a whole bunch of things and catch up, so we can do that while we're doing that.
And then, this is a public hearing and I am going to open it to the public.
Okay.
But I do know that we did receive, a letter from one of your neighbors who was concerned about, the placement of your write-in stable. What are they called? Write-in barns or? A running chat, thank you,
Okay.
where they're placed and how they, like to use their property for hunting and for target
Yeah.
practice and how that, and
how that works between the two of you. I mean, 'cause
Right.
obviously, with a special use permit, we have to be concerned about safety in the community. You know, so
Oh,
again, it takes it to another level when it's more of a commercial business type thing.
Right.
With a
And
special.
I
use
did
permit.
obtain a permit for the shed. And I did submit a
Yeah,
survey, yeah.
No.
So I'm happy to chat about that. I honestly just put it in the dry spot that we had in the pasture that we had just recently built with horses.
Did you
So
obtain a permit for that?
I did. Yeah. It's on file, so there's a permit, there's so yeah, there is a survey, I marked it, and I actually think I'm gonna, why am I blanking on his name? We've talked so many times, the building inspector.
Corey.
Corey, he did say he came out, or was going to come out, I gave him permission to come out and look at your place, so. I don't know if he actually did, but a couple weeks ago, I gave him permission to come out and take a look at and measure maybe where it was, but.
What's the distance to the property line?
So actually, the closest property line belongs to the neighbor in the back, Edward Brown. He has a laneway that connects from the road to his parcel in the back. And I believe when I measured it on the survey, because we have his parcel marked with like a fence line, so that we don't accidentally ride the horses over into his. That you don't ride Ziggy, yeah. So that you don't ride Ziggy in his laneway, yeah. And my husband's late tonight.
It's
so I'm
okay,
sorry
it's
about
not,
that.
you know what, we all have kids, we are all like totally good with this,
Um,
it's not a big deal.
So there is a fence line there, and I think when we measured from that fence line, it was maybe 80 feet from that fence line when we placed it. So from that property line, it's 80 feet. As for the one over, I think we measured that laneway to be a 50-foot laneway. So I imagine another 50 feet from that to the Ishman property beyond that.
Okay,
So that was what I measured on the survey.
alright, so how many feet do you think that it is from that,
From the
To
back
the
of the
Ishman
shed
property?
to the Ishman, I know it was 80 from when we went to the back of the shed to Ed's property. Pretty sure that was 80, and then I think it's another 50 feet. Okay. In that lane,
it's like 130, 150?
Yeah.
Okay.
probably around there. So that's, I knew that the code was, I don't remember what it was when I talked, but I know it was well within
Right,
the property line limit. So,
Right.
okay, I know I had measured it on the survey, and we honestly just put it in the dry spot. So the land kind of pitches down in that area.
Anybody else have any questions?
There's another property between you and the Ishmans.
There's a laneway to the property, so it's a connection from Cheese Factory Road to the woods parcel behind, and it belongs to Edward Brown, who lives over on Quaker Meeting House Road. But he purchased, it's just woods, it's not, there's no building on it. But there is a laneway that runs between, it's a 50-foot laneway, and Ed and I actually went out and we measured and we put a fence, like, we've been very cautious about the laneway, so that's just why I know it exists.
About 50 feet.
About 50 feet when we measure, because he thought that you need to have connection to the road when you have that landlocked parcel. So it's actually Ed's laneway that's between. So I wouldn't call it a property necessarily, but it's access. And he sometimes takes his four-wheelers. I think they go back there, they do some hunting, they have tents and gardens and things back there that they access from that laneway. And there's like a gate up by the road that delineates their driveway area. So, and we put up a fence so that there was no question, like there's T-posts and a line, and we make sure that we don't cross over into that section.
Anybody else have any other questions before we open the public hearing? Are you thinking about something at all, or are you just putting out?
We're just spreading out, honestly, it was just a half horse space. And, the neighbors, since they started doing this traveling ministry and all their children are in college, we were sort of like, hey, you should just, take care of the property in exchange for, using the land. It's all been fair. So, and again, I didn't realize until I actually came in to do the permit for the shed on the neighbor's behalf that I needed to amend the special use permit. I didn't want to, so. Wanted to do that.
so you actually put the shed up on the neighbor's property?
I did.
With their permission?
Yeah, and I went and got a permit for that and put the shed up, but they're no longer really home. Like they're
Yeah.
traveling a ton. They were like, hey, do whatever you want to do.
Okay, anything else, anybody?
I'm just wondering if you're going to obtain insurance to expand onto their property.
I have them as an additionally insured, named additional insured on my insurance since we started in 2019. That I knew I was supposed to do, but. But I didn't realize with the permit, just since it was already being used for that, like they were already boarding and I just. I didn't thought,
That's okay, we'll just make sure that this gets updated.
yeah.
Okay, so at this time, you're welcome to stay. You can go back to your seat. You can do whatever you want. You can turn your chair around.
Here, I'll take you back to your seat because I think your time is up here.
And we'll open the public hearing and, would any of the public like to be heard? Mr. Public, you're welcome to come up. You're welcome to stand at the podium, wherever you're most comfortable. Before ya.
Adam Mishman is my wife, Carmen.
Hey,
Hi. I don't want to submit that letter to you.
okay,
I just want to clear up something first, where she said she just boarding horses there. Even on her website, she runs that horse, what would you call it?
It's a
Equestrian.
cross-country course is what she advertises it as, it's a jumping course, and they have events, and she has lessons there out in that back area. So it's not just boarding horses.
Yeah, and she actually gives lessons. I've seen her out there. She spoke to me, but she's not out there. So for her to come in and say it's just for boarding is totally wrong. And with the running shed, it was built and installed before she got permit.
All of it.
I asked Cory if it was a permit and it wasn't, they sent a letter, and then she got the permit, so it wasn't like she got the permit and I was just, yeah. With the fence that she keeps saying that sort of that separates the easement, I guess would be for the edge. There's this fence post, there's no fence. Riders that come right up along the side of our woods when I'm not being like stop there and get off and talk and I don't know why they take that spot.
Which is the line, your property line, the red line, you know?
Yes, I'm calling it.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
I can help you with that.
They both look red to me. They're not.
Yes, so that's probably us. And we've had an ongoing, and she's been there, constantly, and it's not always us, but every time they're shooting and we have a target range there. She has demanded that we stop shooting because it's affecting her business. It's an ongoing thing. And we have tried to work with her, tried to talk to her, and instead of talking to us, she's called the DEC on us. She's called the sheriff, has come by, and every time they said, no, you're in your legal rights. It's, the distance is fine, everything. And before she applied for this, she had told us, remember she was.
Yeah, she mentioned, she sent me a text one day when I was shooting saying, I don't appreciate you target shooting next to my business. Well, it turns out she wasn't even supposed to be about the business on that.
It was affecting her lessons, it was affecting her riders,
yes.
and it was specifically for the safety of her riders. Not the horses that are boarding there, but her lessons and her riders. And it's just been an ongoing thing, and we have tried to work with her, not that we want to affect her business, but we've been living here for over 20 years. And, it's not like I'm started shooting and hunting all the time, but now it's gonna infringe on us. And there are those other properties there in the woods that they also hunt. And so then she has her riders right along that line there that affects a lot, and the safety of her riders. So.
And the riders have frequently been over, because there's a fence post, there's no fence, the riders come right up to the exit. They saw signs of it right away. And for her to say she has insurance on it, but didn't know she needed a special use permit, I don't know if I buy that.
So, but at any rate,
and at any rate, we're here, we're just kind of listening.
Yeah.
There was a public hearing and we need
and
to
to
hear
hear
the
the
public.
public voice our concern,
And
because it's not just boarding those horses, is what we want to say. There are lessons going on, there has been advertising. And it has continuously been correct.
And for her to seek a special permit, or special use permit now, it's only because I said something, she would.
Well, she does have a special use permit, she just needs to expand it.
No, I need to expand.
Right.
She wasn't looking
And
to
you
expand
other
it.
property years, as she said.
Right.
That's fine, but, and honestly, if it didn't affect us at all, we have no problem.
That's the right.
It's so, and I'm not supposed to be engaging.
I'm sorry.
I'm going to engage you anyway. So basically. Your concern or is the fact that you're unable to shoot in hunt.
What?
Relative to. With, you have concern for the safety of the, I'm not sure where you're.
My concern is, I mean, she wasn't even supposed to be conducting business on this board. And repeatedly harassed us every time we use up the property to shoot on it.
But
And
you're talking about you're shooting on your own.
yeah, on my own
On your
property.
own
It's a
property.
safe
Now
course,
we
the
can't-
sheriffs have seen it, DC. Last time DC came out, he informed her about the 500-foot rule. And that's when the run-in shed was installed even closer to my shooting bench. Now I have to move it.
Right, so that last shed that she's talking about that was in the drive.
That she put there
spot,
before permit.
It's just a coincidence that now it's 500 feet, like, well, within that
Yeah.
short distance, so now we're.
Shortly
gonna-
after the DC.
When she assumed it would leave it, if she, and to put it somewhere else.
Research the 500 foot.
I looked it up and it's very, I spoke to the DC officer and I did research it. The run-in shed, they could play it either way. They could take it as a structure.
You did research on it.
I didn't research far enough. Okay.
Yeah, and that's what he told us too, so,
Right.
okay. Okay,
Yeah, I don't know
thank
if
you.
that shed meets the qualifications of.
Right, and that's what the DEC officer told me it did. I'm like, that doesn't sound right. I looked it up and it reads weird, but I looked it up.
Well, it does read that the structure, would be occupied
Okay,
or use. My glasses on. Or use unless you own it, lease it, or an immediate member of the family. Okay. So, within 500 feet, this is from the DEC website, within 500 feet for firearms. Of a dwelling, farm building, or structure in occupation or use, unless you own it, lease it, or an immediate member of the family. Blah, blah, blah. So you need to stay 500 feet away from anything that's not just her structure, but anything
And
else.
it's been fine.
and that run-in would.
Does the running?
I don't think that's not your interpretation
Yeah.
to make, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, I can't do that.
That's what, I mean, yeah, I interpreted it.
Yeah, so I mean, then if it doesn't qualify for that, then you don't have to move it.
I don't, but she's gonna call and it's gonna.
So- Okay, so, like I said, we can't really engage,
That's okay.
we're not,
Yeah,
allowed to engage, we're just
no, I
supposed to listen. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Which way,
Sorry,
which way is the range shooting?
Oh, yeah, which way does your shooting range shoot? I mean,
It's
away,
north, south,
which is towards her property, away from her property, into the woods?
or property is parallel to it.
So, but it,
It
but you
should-
shoot
it
into
should-
the woods.
Yeah.
You're shooting into the
Yeah, we're
woods.
not,
You have this here.
Yeah, shooting.
it's shooting into
So
the
we
woods.
are, we're over here and we're shooting this way. Into the woods, not even towards
And
the
her
property.
stuff is over here, so it's
Okay.
not even
And
really.
it has a
affecting
big
her at all.
berm there and I
Yeah.
was walking the woods.
Where'd you say?
Over here.
Yeah.
These are the ones back here. She's great.
Shooting down.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
they're
it's
westwards.
they're-
Shooting.
They are west of you if you're north-south.
Yes.
You have a burn as a backdrop to the range?
Yeah, it's with my tractor, I put a big dirt berm, there's pine trees there, there's a board, shooting board. The sheriff has checked it out a couple of times when he's come over, he's checked it out, he's totally fine. He said the berm is above and beyond because of all the trees behind it.
Right. Is that shooting range within the 500 feet?
It is now the new run-in, it's like.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
that's why I
It
put that.
wasn't before.
I got it.
Research it further.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank
Here, yeah.
you.
Like at this time, I want to leave the public hearing open, just because we're maybe going to need some more, information on, some of this. And, Amy is going to, get the, lease, at least an agreement signed. Lease agreement signed, is it what I want to say? Yeah, okay. A lease agreement signed. Anybody else have any questions or anything? I think we're gonna get Amy to come back to finalize this. And so,
Anybody else want to speak?
does anybody else does anybody else want to speak? Any other public? And see what I want to do without Earl. He's always like, he keeps me right on my game. Anyone else like to speak regarding this? No? So, we will table this then until, when is our next planning board meeting that we will have representation at? Do you have the date? Easy. Is it into July?
July 2nd.
Okay, July 2nd. So let's table this until July 2nd. I'll leave the public hearing open. The public who is concerned regarding the placement of the run-in shed and the 500 feet, if they could do some research and get some documentation from the DEC as to where they stand on that, if that actually is considered an occupied building or not. In writing is always good, just so we can have that in our file. And Amy's gonna go and get the lease signed with your neighbors. Maybe if you could get it notarized also, that would just kind of seal the deal, and you can do that right at the town hall. Yeah, you know, Michelle's right there, and she can notarize it for you, it's not a big deal. And then we'll come back on July 2nd, and we'll hopefully be able to come to some conclusions on this.
Great.
Okay,
Appreciate it.
all right, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, next item on our agenda is the Orduna subdivision. I'm not sure if I said that correctly, but. Come on down. Sure.
Let me think about that first. Hey, Lauren, do you want to make a motion to adjourn the public hearing until July 2nd?
I thought we needed to leave it open until July 2nd.
Yeah,
Okay, do I have to make a motion for that to?
sure.
Okay, then I'll do that. Let's
Yeah.
make a motion to leave the public hearing open until July 2nd. Everyone in favor? Oh, in second, Earl, everyone in favor? Aye.
First.
All right, hi.
Motion.
Lauren,
Knock on my boots on over.
Earl said something.
Oh, yes.
My name's Bob Hatch. I am a land surveyor with Schultz Associates, engineers and land surveyors. We're working with this Orduna, do a one lot subdivision.
Mr. Irving here?
I don't believe he is.
No, he's not here. Oh, because I was gonna say, he could come up also.
Yeah, I asked him earlier in the day and I haven't heard a response. He travels with his business.
Okay.
So what we're doing is we're proposing, single lot subdivision. At 52 Mendon Ionia Road, with an existing house, garage, pool, all that other stuff that goes with having a house. Located on the property, it consists of approximately 1.97 acres. They're proposing to cut off, 97 acres, 0.97 acres. And then 0.998 is gonna stay with the house. It's in an RS 30 residential, suburban district. Portion of it does fall in, within 500 feet of the environmental protection overlay district 5. Which is, I believe, the Mendon Cemetery.
Historic.
Top of the hill, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, and, we're not proposing any development at this point in time, planning on building a house immediately. This is coming about, as a part of his divorce settlement. And, she may have dropped off a copy of, portion of the agreement where, with stipulation in there, as long as she's still in the house, the lot cannot be built on, so that might be taken into consideration. But,
I'm not sure, Brooke, do you recall receiving that?
I just received it yesterday.
Yesterday. So. Are they intending to sell this property, both properties? What is their intention?
his intention is to keep lot two, which would be the vacant parcel for himself, and then they're gonna sell the house.
Yeah,
And it should be a garage on there.
I don't know that this is really relevant to the board,
Yeah, I was gonna say, I
their
wasn't,
settlement.
yeah, their settlement and.
And it's, she wanted it to come in, so
I mean, I can look at it for a minute, but.
And so currently you're just requesting that there
just
be a
subdivide-
subdivision.
Subdivide out the lot, create the lot, and then. Sales.
So again, this is a public hearing.
Yep.
So I will open the public hearing to the public.
Yep.
And I'm wondering if any public would like to speak.
We didn't really hear what he was saying.
Oh, because he's facing, okay, if you, can you
Yeah.
just recap around, because it was pretty, it was pretty quick.
Challenging to hear what he was
Yeah.
saying.
And can you use the map?
Yeah,
Can we see that?
Yeah, not a problem. So, Mr. Ordwin,
Can't
Oh.
see.
come up and look at it.
No. It's okay to take a picture for people that are.
So, Mr. Redwood is planning on, selling existing house and barn and the pool that's on the lot, on a portion of the lot that we're calling lot one. And he's planning on retaining lot two for himself, for potential future development. Not a development, but build house for himself.
One house?
One,
So he wants to sell the farmhouse, and then he wants to keep that one
correct.
and potentially build. What's the size of the second lot? 0.97.
It's just a little bit under, yep, both lots are just a little bit under.
If he builds on this lot, where would the driveway be?
That, I don't know for sure, at this point in time.
We should have,
Oh, yeah. You know what? Here I go again, those little things.
You should be addressing her.
Right, this should, right, you should be addressing me and because there's more than one, and you should also say your name. Okay, so you saw the overview of what,
So just so that he understands.
if you wanna,
wait,
just
wait,
hold
wait.
on a minute. There's a process here, so if someone wants to speak, you can
you can
let her know, you can come
let
up
me
and
know
speak.
that wants to speak first, identify yourself, your address, and the comments that you would like to make. I lose control so easily, I'm telling you, I could just do roundtable discussions all day long, so anyway. Whoever would like to speak first is welcome to.
All right, just a couple of questions.
Your
I'm
name?
Dennis Seagroup. I live at 5 Chateau Place, which. If you were to look at this. This is my property here.
Okay,
Okay, so it's immediately adjacent to our access to the property, and I'm just curious if a subdivision like this, and they were to decide that they wanted to build on it. A is 0.9, I don't know what the code is, is 0.97 acres satisfactory. As far as getting a permit for building a home, obviously, as you, I'm sure all know, we are not on sewer, we're on septic, so you have to take that into consideration. There's no current access from Chateau Place, excuse me, onto that property. I don't know if their access would be from Mendon Road, and they would allow an easement there, or from Chateau, or directly from Chateau Place. If I'm the current owner of the property and thinking about subdividing and building a home maybe someday on it, I think those are questions that you would probably want answered before we went into this. We certainly would like to know, and is this gonna require a variance?
Question for you.
Sure.
You said, do you see how it fronts on Chateau Place? Right here.
Yes,
All right, so what's your question about the access?
well, right now, it's just an empty lot, right?
Yeah.
So would he be accessing it here? Would he be giving himself an easement off his current driveway here? You know, again, just curious as to what that would be. Is this a satisfactory size parcel according to the code for building a home? Is this you over here? Yeah, right. So,
Thanks for clarifying that.
yeah, no, my pleasure.
I can help with something. I think any approval of this subdivision, so there's no home plotted on this lot. We call it a paper subdivision, which means you're just chopping off a piece of land. You're not actually proposing the development yet. And so my understanding is that if the board does approve this subdivision, which means you're just taking off this undeveloped land with no plan for development, that it would be conditioned on site plan approval prior to any construction of a home, which means they would have to come back before the board, presuming the code stays the same, which under the current code, that's what's required, that they were required to come back before the board for site plan approval.
Okay.
And then they would, put up the house and the access and all that.
Okay. Is there currently a code right now or a minimum size of lot that you can build on in that area?
There should be a minimum lot size. I thought the code enforcement officer issued a letter on this saying it met,
I thought he did.
but
too.
let me
With
look.
all you guys. Paper copy.
On the right hand side of the plan, there's a table that gives the proposed, or what the current requirements are, which I believe is 30,000 square feet. There, and except for that, and it also shows the building setback lines,
Yeah.
on the map. So there's 20-foot setbacks, 15 side, 30 rear, and 60 front, so there's a box.
Right, so, the proposed, second lot subdivision meets the minimum dimensional zoning requirements of 260 to 106. The, application is not accompanied by a site plan, and thus the newly created lot 2 would not be an improved building lot, and this is reflected on the site.
It would be approved?
It is not, it is not an approved building lot. If it were to be approved, it would just be an approved, subdivision,
Okay,
a paper subdivision.
right, okay, and then there would be another process.
And then there'd be a whole nother process. They'd have to bring their, their actual plans for how they were going to build this house, where the septic would be, where the entrance, where the access would be to, gain access to the home. That's all in the future, if they even decide to do that.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, so it looks like it's 30,000. I'm just looking at the code and the code enforcement officer's letter and this map, and they all seem to align with the idea that it would be a 30,000 square foot minimum, which is less than an acre. What's an acre?
43,000.
There you go. Leave it to the engineer.
Survey.
So you're saying the 30,000 or whatever. As the lot sits right now, according to the code, it would be buildable. Assuming that they came and got the proper approvals from you guys.
Saying that, yeah, the minimum lot size is greater than 30,000 square feet, which would align with the code requirement.
Okay.
next, can your name,
Janet Gardner, but
and address?
3 Chateau, which be adjacent to Dennis, but I just didn't understand where and this might, even though I'm supposed to be talking to you guys, I don't understand where the access point's gonna be.
And we don't know that either because this isn't a site plan, this is just a subdivision. So the access point would be determined when they decided if they were going to build a house there, they would come back with a site plan that would show where the access would be. So they don't have to show that on this subdivision.
That being said, it fronts on Chateau Place, and this says it's a town road.
So it would, if you had to guess,
I'm not gonna guess.
Okay. right? Just along that same avenue of thought, our 3 homes share a common drive. Can we be forced to allow them to use our drive as an easement?
I don't think they.
That's
can be
not really,
forced.
I don't think we, that's not
No.
a comment we're able to answer, yeah. I don't-
But it's a valid, like, how are they, like Dennis said, how are they gonna access their property?
Do you wanna survey or speculate on that?
Utilizing your private drive.
Would not?
No.
Okay.
There's enough frontage along Chateau to create private driveways.
Got it.
Where it would be located, I
Who
don't
knows?
say, but I would say realistically,
If you had
probably,
to guess,
if I had to guess, it would be on the eastern side of the property. Over here, mainly because you got the curve there. So
there's
you
like some drainage, there's
Yeah.
a big drainage.
And we haven't done any work associated with any site planning or anything like that, so
Got it.
that would be looked at as a part of that process when it happens. We'd be looking at site distances to make sure that you come out of the driveway, they can look down the road.
Yeah, yeah. One more, just that we're looking at it, I'm looking down the road, like you said, yeah, we gotta go through the process, but. You know, that process could happen fairly quickly. We could be looking at, builders coming in at some point. Are we looking at like a typical house for that subdivision?
You know what, we don't know until they present. Their site plan, we have no idea what type of a home they would be looking to build and. We just we can't speculate.
Got it, okay. But it's just a residential.
Oh,
Like, yeah,
Well,
oh,
whatever the zoning, I mean, there's no development proposed. Right now, it's just a line on the map.
anyone else, would anyone else like to be heard?
Mark Wolfeld, team Chateau.
What number, 6?
16.
16,
And just out of ignorance, is the house that is on that lot now, is that considered a historic landmark of property that can't be anything done with it? And if so, is that part of the lot, part of that as well?
Confused what the question is.
Hmm?
Confused what the question is.
Then
Then it is the historic district of a historical, the cemetery is a historic.
Right, like the house itself.
do you
It's
have
not-
that? I didn't see it in the,
HPC did comment on this,
they
Lauren.
did comment on it,
Yep.
that's why,
You might just wanna read that.
It's within the 500-foot buffer of a historic site, which is the cemetery, but the house
which is the
itself,
cemetery.
the house itself
Observations
is
and
not.
Comments regarding the application and. Like,
How about the house?
the general site location is well within 500-foot protection buffer area afforded the cemetery, but as a house driveway and outbuildings of lot number 1. Pre-existed the cemetery's designation and no physical changes to lot number 1 are being proposed. We have no cause for concern regarding the subdivision in lot number 1 currently acts nicely as a visual barrier to the proposed lot number 2. That's
So lot
So
number-
really, the Historic Preservation Commission took a look and they really just don't have any, they don't have any concerns. A suggestion that they had was, they suggested their ordinance and the realtor inform any prospective buyers of the designation status of the Mendon Cemetery and its information.
Okay, so the house itself or the current lot in
It's
question
not
is not a,
historical.
okay.
I mean, do we know that?
I was just gonna say, do we actually know that?
Yeah, but the house itself,
Yeah,
on pod 5, it's not. On ePod 5, historic, it's not, the house is not
The
a
house is
historic
not.
site. It's
Okay.
not marked at least.
It's not marked.
It's not
a
marked as
historic
historic site.
Okay. All right, and again, that would come up during site plan review.
Mhm.
Any EPOD infringements, so. Anyone else have anything that they would like to add to the conversation?
Right now, we're just talking about dropping a line on it. Okay.
For right now, that's what.
So this process at this point, as far as we're concerned, is relatively harmless.
At this point, at this point with this approval, as homeowners, you'll see no difference.
How about when you look at it from Google Maps?
Oh,
I'm
well,
just-
that might happen.
I'm just kidding you.
Right, so, anyway, anything else? No? Before I close the public, I will close the public hearing if no one else has anything they'd like to interview. No, okay, the public hearing on this is closed. And now I will open the discussion of this hearing. Oh, we'll close the public hearing. Earl. Who moved first? Teresa moved first and then Earl second, all in favor? Okay, it's closed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate it.
Okay, so now we will,
I need to look into a few things first, so I don't know if you have. I need a few minutes.
you need a few minutes? We'll take a few minutes.
Yeah.
That's okay.
But if you have other business, we can swing back around to this. You can
Well,
put-
should we jump into our general discussion or you wanna do that?
Yeah.
Well, okay, so general discussion.
You still have, here still?
You can still stay, because we'll talk about,
I'll be here.
I can't find 52 Mendon Ionia.
Um,
Road.
general discussion.
52 Mendon Island.
We have upcoming, overall, single home site plan approval, which has already been approved. It just expired because nothing had happened. Emilio put his eyeball on it. He said he didn't see anything had changed on it. So basically, this is for
Yeah.
218.
Maybe I
So
could
this
just try to
looks like
find
this
it.
will be a pretty simple approval moving forward. So that's really, that's our next meeting.
Yeah.
The
do you know where I
town of
should-
Victor with the solar farm. They have a proposal for a solar farm, that is going to apply to some of our amended properties. And they were looking for any feedback that we might have as a planning board or as a town. And Earl's gonna take it from there.
It's not.
The solar farm is about 5,000. So it borders on Gallo property on the east side and a bunch of other neighbors to the south of Gallo.
Go to.
There's an array in here and a very fine print that you can already see. Corey's looking for some input so he can process something to them. But you're paying for it.
Maybe, actually, let's try this.
There it is.
And what are your thoughts on it?
I don't like solar farms to begin with. And I
Yeah, me
think
too.
it's gonna devalue the other property adjoining.
All the properties that
Could be.
enjoy.
The location is out of the way and everything's perfect. However, there's also an area that's gonna collect a lot of snow. Just because of the location and this is out land. Topography
It's
of that
weird.
area.
It's like this isn't working.
It may end up like some others that are just put in and never used. I don't know how much financial support these companies get. Carbon credits or whatever else, but
See if I can get it on my.
showing
Yeah.
up all over.
Is this adjacent to Runaway Creek?
Yes,
Yes.
I believe it does.
Yeah, it's near Run Quick.
Which is a problem, I think, because, you know, runoff from those panels could be toxic, because there's lead, there's cadmium, all kinds of
Good point.
metals that could pollute that creek. That's not a very good placement. I don't know how close it is to the creek, because I don't have to show it, but. And then there's other factors which I'm not seeing here either. Screening, of course. is
Let me know if
important,
you have any luck with
but and
that.
then glare from those panels is important. That's gonna be bouncing off. But the creek is most important, I think, and the toxicity of the site.
Is it east or west of the creek? Does he show the
I
creek
don't
down
see the
there?
creek on here, but if I look on Google Maps, the location, looks like a canary. But maybe somebody else could look and see if they see it, but I don't see it. But I'm turning it straight to you.
Well, he did submit. He did submit a number on this.
This is well put together, they're not the follow.
Where from Fisher's Road, in the Fisher's Road comes in.
Yeah.
I did find it.
Oh, I know.
Fisher's Road or Main Street.
This is my house.
What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna find the property name, and the internet. Maps and pull it off of that.
Okay.
Something's not working over here, right? It's different.
Now,
This crib is on embedded. Property
on
line.
the other side of the creek, closer to.
I see he submitted a map, and it does say
It's got a bridge from
Yeah.
that creek.
something about being on the register here.
Yeah.
Does that just mean it's in the buffer?
That's it.
Because it's in the buffer?
I don't think so.
There's Fisher's, here.
Yeah, no, you can actually maneuver it if it's easier for you.
I think so, but I also think that if there's no
not
question, I'm tired somebody to be here.
Yeah.
They can answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
Is there something specific you wanted me to look on here?
I just wanted to see if this, the property itself was listed.
So can you look, one of them said it's on the it's listed on New York State.
Yeah, I'm gonna look right now.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is 251 miles square, so it's down.
Is it 52? I think we should call it.
Yeah, okay, so there's.
I don't know what the address is. This,
I guess I don't know what it's 52 Minute Island.
is there a dash in there?
I don't think so.
Show me again what the site is.
It's like
I don't understand what their concern would be.
So it's
because that
between,
house already
where Old Dutch
exists.
comes down,
Need for
Yeah,
the
right there.
creation of
and it's
future
between
development.
there, Old Dutch comes down the hill right to
It's,
there.
hold on.
It's a creek.
Paul Island, that's the property, right there. Paul
And
Island
it's
property.
Miles Square, it's right
Right
there.
there.
That's it. right
That's
there.
behind
That's
Dallas.
subdivision.
Okay, and where is, the creek, you see the creek down here?
Seeing the creek, but the creek comes across in here, right up to here, and across in here.
So here's
See, six.
what we got for the creek.
Galsano's property goes right to the creek.
There's Galveston property right here.
Hmm.
See the Highland property, that's where the store property going.
Right there.
Not seeing
On
it
his
here, I
prop-
see
there's no
16,
vacant
which I'm assuming
homes.
is maybe the
There's a little bit of,
graveyard.
From the creek.
Yeah.
right here, see this little strip here? Right there, that's what the road's coming in, it's done, got the massive land behind it.
This back in here.
He knows why this is not here.
Is there a sign out there? Does he have a?
I don't know, I didn't drive over.
Yeah.
This is gonna be
Interesting. I wonder what Galsano's got.
something you gotta be designated, no, but I'm not even in town.
Yeah.
Because it's actually New York State, also state, I think, federal resident of the floor.
If he was raising us think about these shitting on his lawn and.
Right, I know.
They will.
You could buy the property. And that's what you might do with these folks.
All these people.
Galsano's property goes right to the creek. And
And we're crossing.
Mr.
Yeah.
Public. Mr. Public. Do you know if Tom Gallisano's property abuts the creek? Right, like,
It goes right through the property line, right through his house.
it goes right through
It's
his.
just there.
Yeah, he's got a bridge over
He
it.
has a bridge that goes to his house. So the land, the solar farm, elevation wise is 100 foot up on top of the hill behind tennis. and tennis
Minutes
on
are gonna
jail.
be really hard.
Up the hill, so the stuff will run down the. Like run up.
Yeah, it's a closer.
So, I would assume it would go down the hill, but I'm just saying that it's not, the creek is on a completely different elevation. Creek is down by Fisher's Road, Tennyson Road, you gotta go up Miles Square, feel the hill
Seeing it now.
to get to that elevation, and the thruway is behind it. So it's 150 foot up.
Thank you.
So you gotta, there's a typo, man, where it is.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Public.
It's heavily wooded. And with one bear spot here, and then covering most of the property with that.
All of this.
All of it.
I'd like to know how they're gonna access it. There's a little house on the other side of the creek with a little windmill.
That used to be Geraldine Bowles, the real estate person. Was in there.
You know where that little windmill?
I know, that's the little house there, overlooking
Yeah,
to the west,
that must be the access.
right next to that. There's the access, in a little bitty.
Land next to.
Right, okay.
Right? So if Corey, how soon does Corey have to have his comments to the town?
These comments are due by June 10th.
Next week.
So Corey wanted to hear the planning boards and then we'll group all comments
Okay.
together.
Did you want to take notes? Do you want me
Yeah.
to take notes? Want
No, I plan to
questions
take notes, yeah.
And we'll just kind of combine a few of our concerns.
Yep.
That we just are coming up with off the cuff. This isn't really.
We can poke around up there if we have our badge, right?
What badge?
You know, our ID thing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
This is one of the-
I don't know.
part of-
Oh, I mean, it's private property. I don't know if you can go up there or not.
You cannot.
No,
Good.
Not at all.
Mr. Public Backyard bullshit.
Yes, that's right.
But you can see. Right away, yes, that, you have, permission or warrant.
There's no problem.
Yeah.
It's there.
Yeah.
It's not. Shit, so-
Yeah, it's not-
And there it is.
if it were,
But you can-
Then you could.
I see.
Holy tree around, this one been cleared out for whatever reason.
Yeah.
You can't just go around.
He owns all of this, subdivided that off.
even if I bring my little sheriff's badge.
So he's telling you.
Yes, he's already subdivided, but he lived here and he left a little strip of right of way to get back in there for them to put a road in.
Right, so
If that road has to.
we did say one of our biggest concerns then is the runoff,
The runoff, yep.
the runoff into the creek,
Right, just generally the proximity to the creek.
toxins. You wanna be, should we be, do you wanna be specific with toxins, the lead, or just toxins?
I have to just leave it at proximity to the creek because it's on a hill overlooking the creek.
Yeah, but the issue is more than just visual, it's the fact that it could contaminate.
It could contaminate the creek, the runoff. could contaminate the creek.
I think it'll be visible from the road.
I don't know if they're just screening it or you can't try to screen these because you can't sometimes.
Right.
Obvious reasons.
And are we concerned about property values of any of the surrounding properties?
Well, that guy in that $1 trillion house right there with the pond, he might be.
People on Tennyson, maybe.
Medicine Way.
That
overlooks
cul-de-sac.
it.
He's got a waterfall and everything going into that pond, you know, the house.
That's Smith on Fisher's Road, it's down the road a little way.
No, it's right next to it.
Mhm. The one next to that is,
The one with the windmill.
Smith is down 2 lots. One, two. But 2 lots, the one right next to it is. Or it's an Anna Caparella.
Oh, I know them.
I know the Camporellis, they're
They're right
closer
on
to
the,
Mile Square.
right, well, they're right across from Dutch Hollow and they're right on the road.
Right.
So that would be like their up backwards up view.
And there's
That's
that dog
that's
cabin.
right, we'll go right next to their house.
Oh, on that side of the creek.
Yeah. Right there.
So property values,
That's
I
the
guess.
right
is
of way
what
right
Got
there.
We're concerned
So
about.
that's gonna be right back there.
About, and anything else that we can.
This is Google Maps.
This
Because they
is
can
I,
also point that up
The
there.
glare.
which makes every parcel land that I wanna look at.
Yeah.
I do have Google Maps, but it's too difficult to figure out.
I like that.
Anything else?
Anybody else, any concerns that you want Cory to incorporate? into
Point
the
out the
letter?
fact that the access road is going right past the neighbor's house to the east, to the west is Highland that owns that house. He split his property off from his house, so he split this piece off.
I think that's Town of Victor residents, though. Highland is Town of
Between
Victor.
Caparelli's and Galisanos, right?
No, the access doesn't abut up to Galisanos, the back Fieldwood.
That's Paul Highland there.
Okay, is he in, he's in the town, he's in Victor though,
Yeah.
right?
Yep, and the bigger is Paul Highland
In Victor,
and Victor.
right, so because he abuts to all of these people,
Yes,
and really, this is Tennyson over here.
yes,
So really, I mean, we're all looking at Gallisano, but Tennyson is definitely, as,
Right there, yeah.
Danielle pointed out, definitely, a concern.
because this house right here,
Yeah,
those folks, the roadway goes right next to it.
the entrance into,
Entrance going in, all the work,
the entrance would be in the town, between two neighbors, right?
yes,
In the town of Mendon,
is the town of Victor,
in the town of Victor, so we can't really talk about the town of Victor.
No.
Okay,
not really. but-
Main Street.
not really, but we can.
I- For our concerns is quality of the road and the rest of that. But, good effect, folks right there, the lights.
And the Tennyson cul-de-sac. And the value of their homes
But
there.
kind of say, what we need to see is what the elevations are on this. And some way and. The Highland property. And what the water control is, kind of towards the Galveston property.
I'm glad we moved on. So I'm glad we moved on.
Yeah.
Wasn't expecting this much time, but I'll take it.
Are you saying the access would be between Galisanos and Caparelli's?
No, between Paul Highland.
Print a map.
Okay, with Paul Highland, there's no
I
property.
should have
So
it's
he
not
has
very
his
clearly
house orders outside.
written
You don't
out in
have the
this
house, it's that
proposal.
log cabin on the corner.
Yeah, that's way away. That's up on,
It's on the corner of
Yeah.
Miles Square and
Fisher's, yes, to the east of that.
Okay. So. You think that's enough to get Cory started and have him?
Yeah.
Get their input?
Yep.
Well, we're mostly worried about the environmental impacts.
Yeah.
I think, and the property values. Especially on,
Tennyson.
so, there you have it. Okay.
So
Earl has
afterwards,
something to say.
should you be discussing with Corey or someone else in the office is when you should be sending letters out to those people on Tennyson Way and Galveston?
Yeah, I already have letters drafted. Yep.
Okay,
Public wants to
what,
speak.
Mr. Public?
I'm sorry to interrupt. The gentleman sitting next to me says he already got a letter from, I believe, the Victor or from.
I was gonna say, the town of Victor should have notified, but I think Corey and myself decided that we were going to also.
He was in Miles Square and he got a letter, I don't know if it went from either the company or from Victor saying that this was in process, just saying it might be.
Well, the town of Victor should have, notified the,
Right, but I'm
abutting
saying, he's
neighbors.
already saying they've already done that. Doesn't hurt. And it follows up with people living in town.
Got it,
There's my.
thank you. Are we ready to jump back to, Mr. Organo? And the subdivision?
Yeah, I
Do you have some clarifying?
have a few thoughts. One, I think we could add it, a seventh condition that specifies that any further development will require site plan approval. Just because it seemed to be a concern and we can just make that clear. My question is, should we, right now, there's a note that says not an approved building lot on there. And I think that's raised some questions, what that actually means. So I think we have a couple of options. One, we could asterisk that and clarify what it means, or we could just delete it and put a note on there that we understand. I don't know if that's a standard note that Warrior, the town wants on there, if it means something other than what we might think it means. Meaning we should leave it, or if it's really supposed to address the issue we're talking about, and we can refine it to be a little more clear. Does anyone know?
I'm not sure if that's a standard note required by the town.
You know why that note's on the map?
Yeah, it's basically stating that it's not approved as a building lot. If you want, the town of Sweden has a good note, basically saying the subdivision approval is, basically needs to be, site plan approval needs to be submitted before the permits or anything. I
Okay.
can send you a copy of that.
Well, how-
Verbiage right off the top of my head.
Oh, I love coming up with verbiage myself. Here's what I wrote. This may be a little much, but I think it gets to the point. And so I guess we can replace the note then. It sounds like you put it on there voluntarily, or we could put approved by the planning board for subdivision only, period. Further development shall be required to comply with the town amending code, including, for example, compliance with chapter 260, which provides that no site preparation or construction may commence until site plan approval has been given by the planning board. That's a lot more, that's a lot longer of a note, but
And that note would be right on the plan.
well, if there's enough room to put it there, if that makes sense. What's that?
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, I mean, you could put it there. Was that something that came out of Corey's letter? I just want to make sure I'm not taking something off that he wants on there. Let me just see if I can find it. I'm not gonna be able to find it quickly. I've got some typos
Right,
up here.
right here.
There it is. Here it
Yep.
is. Yeah, he says it's not accompanied by a site plan, and thus it would not be an approved building lot. I think we're saying the same thing.
I think you're saying the
just in
same
a
thing,
different
just
way. I don't know if he'll,
short, long version.
yeah, I don't know if he'll has much care for how we word it. You want to go with the revised wording, or?
I don't know, what do you guys think?
I think it kind of clears it up.
Makes it very definitive as to what.
Yeah.
We're saying. I kind of feel the same way. What about down here? Charlie, what do you think?
Yes.
Just say yes and move on.
Yeah, I would almost, Don, could I ask you to read that again?
Yeah. To have this note that says not an approved building lot, I think there are some questions about what that actually means. To have it instead read this way. Approved by the planning board for subdivision only. Further development shall comply with the Mendon Code, including, for example, chapter 260, which provides that no site preparation or construction may commence until site plan approval has been given by the planning board.
Are you good with that?
I'm good with that.
Okay.
It's a little wordy, but it's pretty clear, like, nobody will. Should question that.
Okay, so I'll add that as an additional condition. And then it occurred to me, a couple things occurred to me here that I didn't fully occur to me until now. Firstly, is that where we sent this to the HPC because it triggered by reason of the cemetery being nearby, but they're not actually proposing development. And it's the development, I believe, that triggers the EPOD permit.
Yeah,
So I don't know if we need, so right now the resolution issues an EPOD permit, but I wonder if that would be premature because
I was gonna ask you that when I saw that. I thought that an EPOD permit at this point might be premature because we're not really sure what
Yeah.
we're issuing it for.
because it says construction of new structures or modification, permanent signs, clearing of land, filling, cutting, or excavating, and discharge of stormwater, but I don't think any of that is planned or should be permitted until they get a site plan approval.
Right,
So maybe we don't issue the EPOD permit yet, and we wait to do that at site plan.
yes,
Okay, I'll take that out
thank you.
now. So I'll take that EPOD permit issuance out of the draft resolution. The last thing is, it also occurred to me that site plan review for one home, I believe, is a type 2 action, which means it's not subject to seeker. So this will likely be the board's only chance to do seeker. And given that, yeah, I think you have a few options. One is. And the reason I raise this is because of the potential historic impact. You know, I think you could probably still get at that in some ways through the site plan review. But again, seeker is supposed to be done up front. You don't have a plan, which is understandable because they're not proposing a development right now. I think there's a few ways you could look at it. The most conservative way would be to and the most conservative way, and the way I think the DEC would encourage you to do this, would be to suppose that there's going to be a house there and consider whether that would have a historic impact or not, or impact on an environmental impact by way of historic impact. Tough to do without a house being plotted, but the HPC did say in their comments that they weren't concerned because I think they said the house at lot 1 acts as a buffer anyways. So, you know, if you want, you could go with that. The other thing you could do is you could ask for this to be sent to SHPO and get a letter from the State Historic Preservation Office, which is pretty standard fare when you're dealing with historic property. And I do know that the EAF mapper actually says, it actually checks off and says that there's a historic property, so it's indicated. You know, I think the applicant, correct me if I'm wrong, has indicated there's some flexibility on the timing here because they're not planning to build right away. I think the applicant would prefer an approval tonight, but I think the board could also hold off and ask to get that SHPO letter if it thinks that would be helpful.
Okay.
So I'll leave that to you, board.
What do you guys think? The SHPO letter is important before approval.
I think that's the prudent thing to do.
I agree.
Get ahead of it.
Well, yeah, so to speak. I mean, it's not that we're anticipating any negative response, but you know, it's good to know ahead of time. Because it might change what the applicant is wanting to do anyway.
Yeah, they might raise an issue that we can put as a condition on our subdivision approval.
No, I'm not. Yeah.
I do have the EPOD map pulled up on my computer too.
So is this the cemetery that is sitting here, and then is this, would this be the house that's existing on that lot?
You know what? I'm
This is the
not
lot
sure.
right here.
But it almost
Mm.
looks
So
like.
there's the cemetery, so it falls, this is a 500-foot buffer with a belt, that's the site.
Mm,
So really half of this lot, if you cut this in half,
Okay.
might be a
But I
little
don't know.
tiny corner section of the lot,
yeah.
but
So it's
You
across
said
the
you
street.
had- It's across the street.
the
The cem-
cemetery is across the street from 52 Mendon.
Cemetery's here.
Look, I'm looking in the right spot. You see this? That's the cemetery.
Yep.
But this green triangle, this to me looks like it's
Oh.
where the White House is on the
Oh.
corner that's existing.
Wait, you're looking at the wrong, this is
Am I looking at the
Chateau.
wrong one? Okay.
This is, yeah, it's the Mendon Cemetery right here. So
Oh, I
this,
thought it was that
no,
lot.
it's this
Okay.
cemetery right here. So this is the lot, so it's easier to see down
Gotcha.
here.
Oh, I see it now.
So this is the whole lot. So only a
Alright.
corner of the 500-foot buffer
Gotcha.
touches, it really covers the house, not necessarily
Yeah,
the
all right, I
lot
wasn't wrong.
being-
I thought if it was the house, then we are having an
No, this
issue.
is the cemetery and this is the lot. The house is
Oh,
here,
yeah,
so
if you-
half of it would
Yeah.
be, sorry.
What do you think, Teresa?
I mean, SHPO can make recommendations, but ultimately it's us that has to make the determination, so. And they're not exactly timely all the time, it can take time, you know, and if it's going to sway our decision or not, subdivide this, I don't know. I don't know if it's kind of spinning our wheels on it. To me, it would not sway my decision,
Why?
because it's a lot that's already, it seems to be. The dimensions are, they're all in conformance with what the requirements are. There's nothing that's non-conforming about it. And it's just, if it's just the cemetery that we're considering, it's really I don't know, I don't know that it's, if it was this house that we were talking about and it's directly adjacent to it, then yes, I think we should get some more input. But I think the HPC is correct in saying that this house is a buffer and really might not make too much of a difference.
Okay.
So it's up to the board whether you're gonna move forward tonight. If you do, I've updated the seeker section to say, if you're gonna neg deck it, to say, I'll just start from the middle of it. No or small impact, including for all those reasons set forth in the record of the planning board, inclusive of the comments by the HPC, which is already there, but then also including because the historic cemetery is across the street, that any proposed development of a home would be consistent with the neighborhood, which is residential. Including given that no development, just residential.
Now, they set a precedent for a case like Dave Minton as it relates to United Contract and Clover Street, because all those houses are existing and are a buffer between Minton and the park. Do you remember what I'm talking about? It's the same thing, really.
Wasn't Mitten an actual historic house? No. I don't remember.
They were within the 500-foot buffer
Oh,
of the
yeah.
historic site.
The park across the street.
Oh, yeah, I was trying to think about which, because we dealt with something like this before.
Yeah, so you've got the park and then across the street, you've got the houses and then Minton on the other side. It's kind of the same thing.
I'm trying to remember, didn't we just issue him a DPAD permit for that?
We
I think
did,
the EPOD was for the waste site.
Oh, that's right too.
Yeah, Lakeside, but I
I
don't
believe
know
it was
whatever
Something
became of the,
historic site, I don't remember. Not that it really,
what became of the issue of proximity to the park, though? It kind of just went away, didn't it?
I don't know if I have access to Don's resolution to that.
I know there was a
application.
prior, subdivision where we required SHPO. I don't know if we required it, but it was
It was
provided.
the Woolman
yeah.
site plan that we had SHPO involved.
I think we had SHPO was involved both.
They
in
would
this-
provide us with a letter, but it wasn't updated, so we requested an updated.
Yeah. I think,
I think Teresa's has got some pretty solid points as to why we wouldn't want to refer that to ship out, you know. I don't know,
So-
I'm looking for other people to chime in here to. Earl, what do you got? Every time I look at Earl, he's always got this like little. smirk on his
So if
face,
they
but he's
do-
ready to say something.
From now on, when they complete one of these, would that require
What do you
to
think
remove
about
my
SHPO?
resolution, because sometimes I'll refer to completing an EAF. She actually has to go through and check the check boxes and sign it and all that stuff.
Freaking awful
Does that
lot.
make sense? So-
On their,
Property line.
their
There's additional
certificate
part one, there's a part two, I don't have printed out,
Property.
that the board is supposed to check, do their part.
I'll check their marks and sign it.
They can put it on the.
Just
plan.
over in the chair. Okay.
Right, I mean, then we can address the other issues, the EPAD issues and stuff when it's.
You want me to
when we
print
get
one
a
off
site
to
plan.
do tonight?
And then we can refer.
I don't think you can do it right
to
now,
SHPO if we
because
need to.
if you read it, it says
That makes
how it's
sense.
gonna be done.
Okay.
Did you catch that down? Do
She used to do it. No, I didn't.
you want to say it? Well, I don't know if I'll say it right, so you know how I mess up, so you can interrupt me.
Basically, we're just approving a piece of parcel of land,
Yeah, but
not a site plan.
what I was saying before is seeker doesn't apply to a single family residential home, so you won't be able to do seeker when the home comes. So
We
that,
won't be able to
that's the
request it.
argument we can't make. That
But
is just the
But
line.
if but if it's in the EPOD,
If it's in the EPOD, we still get to do the, EPOD. Let me just put it this way, seeker, forget everything else. Seeker requires us to do our environmental assessment now, as if they're building a home. So that's where we're at.
Even on single lot subdivision that's moving it off the property.
Yes, because we won't be able to do seeker on the site plan, because see, that's a type 2 action that's not subject to seeker. So we need to do it now. So the question is, are you comfortable issuing a negative declaration with regards to the historic issue without a SHPO letter because of the things we've been talking about? Or are you not, and we want to ask for a SHPO letter?
I would be comfortable, because I think when it comes to site plan approval and we do issue the EFAT, that at that point, we can say, well, let's get a buffer in here, let's put some vegetation there, or whatever we can do to mitigate between the lot and the cemetery. I think that's something we can handle during site plan. You know.
I concur. Charlie? Yeah, good, I'm good. You good with that? Sure. Okay,
So again, just to clarify the language, we're going to reference the comments of the HPC. We're going to reference the fact that the cemetery is across the street. By the way, the HPC says the house already existing provides a buffer, and reference that any proposed development of a home would be consistent with the neighborhood, which is residential. Is that okay? And then you're also right. I don't know that this figures into seeker, but you will be able to. It will be subject to an EPOD permit as well. So
right.
I can put that in here.
Add it in there.
Okay, added.
Okay. So, have a draft resolution here, right, or a resolution?
We do with the changes we talked about. So you have a written resolution. Someone could move the written resolution as we discussed, as modified,
For final approval.
if you want. Yep.
Is somebody comfortable doing that? Teresa, anybody want a second? No, Danielle, all in favor? Any opposed? Nobody abstains? There we go.
There you go.
We did our general discussion. We have the upcoming meeting on
Send
the
that to you.
18th with the Silver Roll plan. Don, you will not be here, but I
I will
don't
not be
think,
here.
because this is so straightforward, I don't think that we'll have to worry about that. Congratulations on your approval.
Appreciate you spending time on it.
So I guess we will be back here on
Yeah.
the 18th. Oh,
Point the Silver Bowl, maybe moving that lot due east. In other words, trading off property on one side, complete it over next to the east. property.
okay, you're confusing me. What did you just say? They're moving the property line?
They're talking about moving the property line on the east side eastward to the neighbor's property line. The west property line, moving it eastward the same distance, so just taking the property.
I thought it was the same.
I thought it was gonna say the same.
It's great,
Submitted
they're
it.
not gonna bring that up now. This is what's gonna happen in the future, so you know.
They're gonna just change their lot
They're
line.
just gonna move the lot line over, so. If that comes, if it's a potential happening, you'll know when they show on the site plan where the house is gonna be.
So they're showing the exact same site plan that we approved before. There's no changes.
I didn't see the house.
It's right, it's in front of you, Earl.
I knew the owner.
Oh, so you recused yourself? Okay. Where's what?
Earl, you have
Oh,
it in
here
front
it
of
is.
you.
It's right here. It's this.
He has it in front of him. Lift up that, lift up the application in front of you. Is it underneath it? I did give it to you. It's somewhere. Did you put it away already?
Dropping it.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. So this is exactly the same one that they submitted, that they had approval for before.
Part of it is if you're,
Right?
you're
This is exactly the same site plan, right?
Yeah, I checked, it hasn't changed.
Hasn't changed, he said.
So if that's something they want to do in the future, I mean, it's either they withdraw that application to review it or new application.
But would that just be an administrative resub if they wish to move the lot lines? Cause they're not creating a new lot, they're just moving the lot lines? Would it be I believe that would just be administrative.
Because they own all that property. Earl, they
Well,
own all that property, so they could just convey.
Yep.
Yeah,
But if they're changing the layout, that's the site plan, right? If they're moving the house. The other thing I'll say, if Earl is,
oh,
if Earl is recused, then I don't know why.
Yeah.
We're talking about it with Earl. I think if the board wants more information about this, if Earl's recused, the board can ask the applicant about it. If they
Okay.
want to ask about future plans and whether this represents their plans, or, you know, if there's any concerns about whether your review is sufficient, then you should raise them directly.
okay, so, but as it stands, it has been approved, this is how they're gonna build and, and if they wanna move their lot lines, that's one
Okay,
thing,
yeah.
that's future, but as long as they're not moving the actual site,
Right.
the house, then we don't have to worry about that.
There's plenty of room there for them to move that over and for move that over.
Okay, so they're just talking about lot line
Yep.
stuff, okay,
They can do-
Yeah. so they can just do that. So it remains the same.
Yep.
Let me throw something out there.
No. No.
So regarding the run-in shed,
Oh, for Lear?
yeah, now hear me out. He had an established shooting range. They put the run-in shed in with a legal side setback. But within 500 feet of his range. So what happens if along his property line, it's beautiful hardwoods, it's the prime deer hunting spot right there. All they have to do to stop him from hunting is to build a running shed.
That's correct. You hit it there.
Then that's what they're saying is that because of this ongoing dispute, she purposely placed that there so that he couldn't use.
The 500 feet pertains to the hunting season, not to normal life. It's under the heading of the hunting season and hunting regulations is 500 feet of the discharge of a weapon.
So they can still operate.
They can still
they
do
can
it
still shoot
500
on
feet
the range.
and something.
So what happens if the prime deer, you know what I'm talking about, what if that's the sweet spot right
Yeah, I know.
along there for deer hunting? And if they don't want to hunt, all they have to do is build a running shed, and then they can't hunt.
It's 500 feet with a gun, 250 feet with a crossbow.
I understand
100
that,
feet
but
target.
the scenario I'm talking about, is that to be believed?
Yep.
That's all it takes, just to
That's
keep
all it
somebody
takes.
from hunting.
An habitable or building that people normally inhabit in and out. If they just put the running shed, I don't think that'll qualify.
Well, he said it did.
Well, he wasn't sure. That's why they were going back to find out what that.
Okay, what if we put a working barn right there?
Done.
This doesn't, so I'll just read, so first of all, I'm not an expert in this area. And I think if the board wants some clarification on this, then they should ask. If the board needs clarification on what you're talking about, you can ask for the applicant to consult the DEC. Because they're the ones who enforce this, that's my understanding, it's under the environmental conservation law. I don't see any, here's what it reads, I don't see any clarification about only in the hunting season here, I see it under. Environmental conservation law, prohibitions on the use and possession of firearms. And it says under 4, it says no person shall. Discharge a firearm within 500 feet. Talks about longbow, crossbow. From a dwelling house, farm building, or farm structure actually occupied or used. School building, school playground, public structure, or occupied factory or church. And then it talks about some exemptions. For example, one of the exemptions would be a range by a law enforcement agency. Gun range by a law enforcement agency.
I think whether this run and shed qualifies is going to be an issue before this is over. That's why sort of why I'm bringing it up.
And is that,
Depends on if it's a farm building or farm structure.
is that part of this, approval? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, if that's a dispute that they're having as
Well, we
neighbors.
just had a public hearing, right? So
Right, but, and they came and they spoke because they wanted to speak, that doesn't mean that we weigh what, I mean, what they said may not weigh in on this. We're looking at her special use permit, right? She can put her run-in shed anywhere she wants. If she thinks she put it so that he can't use his range, then that's something he's gonna have to figure out, not us. Our approval is for making sure that if she's using her neighbor's property, that she has a lease. The neighbors know what she's doing, that, you know, that her ingress and her egress are the same, and that her, you know, her operations have stayed the same and haven't changed. And she says that they haven't. He says, they say that they have, but that seems to be, that almost seems to be like a neighbor dispute more than what we
Don't
have to
feel like
weigh
the
in on.
conditions to be the same.
I
as
don't
far
know.
as-
I don't think it's in our
We want
jurisdiction,
those
that
conditions.
decision, but
Okay,
for example.
okay.
I'll take it. Yeah, you want to shoot
Say
it?
the
send it.
front and shed doesn't qualify, I'm sorry, I'm beating this to death, but say that she decides to put a barn further back. A working stable. Horses, people coming and going, that qualifies. And she gets it as close as she can, now she shuts them down from hunting back there.
Well, within 500 feet, I mean, he's got a whole bunch of land, I mean. he
Yeah,
could
but
hunt
what if
that
the, what
further.
if the prime hunting?
I know, I'm just saying that, but
Wasn't part of her approval that she didn't create a nuisance or disturbance to the neighbors? In which she is.
it's subjective,
It
right?
just seems to me like this is a loophole for somebody to abuse.
I mean, I know, but I mean,
I mean, you can
totally
look at
agree.
that either way, though. You can say him saying he's hunting in these trees takes over 500 feet of her property. I mean, you can look at it either way. Right?
A property that does not have a special use permit, that's just permitted to be there by our code. And it doesn't have any exceptions or anything, take precedence over a property who has the special privilege of having the special use permit, because it seems to me like. If you have a special use permit, it's a privilege that you are able to operate, you know, with that permit.
A special use permit is for a use that is not, it's permitted so long as it meets the conditions in your special use permit code. And there's a bunch of different things for stables and riding academies. And there's also some general things such as safety. And so this board's charge is to look at this special use permit application against those requirements and make a determination as to whether it satisfies those requirements. If safety is a concern, given the nearby shooting activity, the board needs to take that into consideration. And assess it and come to some conclusion. That conclusion might involve certain conditions if the board finds those to be appropriate.
Earl, if I buy the property next to you. And I build a house. With the proper setback. From your property line, where your favorite hunting spot is, you're done hunting.
At least in his favorite spot.
First, I had advised the neighbor what was going to happen.
Well, but I'm talking about legally,
You're right. They put the house there,
and then you
and they had, this from Holly Hill,
Oh, you've got more than one house.
so a lot of houses on Holly Hill. And which I have issues with, there's over 60 tons of trash thrown over on my property from one of the houses.
Okay.
I think let's stay on point with what we're assessing.
We can talk about that, like if you wanna go like out for a cocktail or something.
I think if the board has a question about how this law applies in terms of who was there first, it should direct the applicant to not the neighbor,
No,
the
not
applicant,
neighbor, the applicant.
to contact the DEC if you want clarification on that.
Yeah.
They're the ones who enforce this law. They said they dealt with the DEC. That if you want clarification on that, and for purposes of assessing compatibility with the neighborhood and safety, which are factors you're supposed to assess, then you need to make that request.
I'm still not. I'm still.
Special use permit. Expanded. Not knowing. Into a full property larger than hers for her operation.
I know,
The special use permit was for her. In lessons. On her property. And then she put up a huge riding arena after that. You tread a little bit beyond with the riding arena, and now she's over the neighbor's property.
That's it. You want to give it to me?
Scan it in.
Again, I think you need to look at this application. There's the enforcement side of things, which is what you're talking about, Earl, that she did something about a permit. She said she didn't know. But we're not an enforcement board. We're looking at her proposition to operate this stable and riding academy across the property as she's proposed. And we're gonna use, you're to use the special use permit criteria that we've been talking about. There's more in the code to make that determination.
is it prudent to try to look at this with fresh eyes, because like, as you said, this was going to be a new special use permit. It wasn't really necessarily going to be an amendment to the one she had.
I don't
So
see
if
what the
we-
distinction really is. I mean,
Well,
it's there.
so I'm thinking just for us, I mean, if everybody just looks at it with like a fresh eye, like as if she hasn't already been doing this, and she didn't do anything in the past, and she's just coming to us now. And she wants to a special use permit for this area and her neighbor's area. She's got permission, you know, from the neighbors to do this. If we look at it like that, how do we feel with the safety issues and the neighbor, the neighbor impacts and all of that? Instead of going back and saying she's already been doing this and now she's just expanding and.
I think it's relevant that she's been operating at her property. On 250, whatever it is, 254, 256. I don't know how relevant it is that she didn't get I don't know how relevant it is to the planning board that she started expanding without getting a permit first. That's an enforcement issue that certainly should be addressed. Perhaps it comes under the planning board's purview under the pre-existing special use permit from the first enforcement standpoint. In any event, she's now here before you applying to expand onto this property. That's what you're dealing with.
We can, in our final decision, we can take into account the concerns of the neighbor, correct?
You can condition, yeah, you can take into account concerns of the neighbor so long as they're relevant and reasonable. And so long as they're relevant to your consideration. And then you can also condition your approval based on to address relevant concerns that you're permitted to address pursuant to your code.
Well, doesn't that get into the lawmaking part of it?
The law, this board doesn't make law.
I know it, so for us to place conditions regarding, the shooting or setbacks. and-
Well, I guess it depends. I don't want to deal with hypotheticals. What kind of conditions are you talking about?
So I'm thinking that if we approve her expansion, because it looks like it's okay, right? Like, so we're approving her expansion. And she's got a building within 500 feet of his shooting range. We might feel really bad for him, but that isn't our problem. That's his problem. Right, so we just have to look at it as all of that. And I know we're talking about safety issues, but she's not, because she isn't the one who has a safety issue per se, correct? I mean,
The horses aren't causing the safety issue.
right, the horses and the people.
what you're
aren't
saying.
causing- it's So she, as operating the business, she is not causing the safety issue.
But
She's not causing anything to be disruptive in that respect to the neighbors.
putting horses near an active shooting range may be a safety issue.
Yeah.
And so you may need to
But
think
what
about how
she's
that can be
saying is
addressed.
that she's already got her shed up there, so it really, the issue really isn't.
That's for you all to assess
Got
if
it?
that's a safety issue or not.
Well, for one thing, they said there's no fence, they're just posts. I think one of the requirements regardless is going to be to have a a fence.
That crossed my mind.
All right, well, we have lots to think about.
I can note that as a potential condition, so I'll preserve that for when we come back to revisit this.
So the special use permits, they stay with the applicant, they're not associated with the property, is that correct?
Correct.
So they run.
Well, they're associated with both.
Because if she doesn't own the land and she's looking to extend the special use permit, does that matter?
I think it makes it a lot more complicated. Yeah,
That's the thing that I was thinking is a little bit, I don't know.
Oh, for her to.
Yeah. Typically.
that's why Lauren has asked her to provide a lease to show that she has the authority to use the land for this purpose.
What would happen if they sell their property and she still has something? that
I
says
thought of that
they have the
too.
authority to use the land?
Yeah, so I I have kind of thought about this a little bit and crafted some conditions that basically say, in order for this to continue to be a valid special use permit, the both owners need to consent to the use of the property in this way, and that the operation would have to, between the two properties, would have to be operated as in conjunction with each other as a single operation.
The people whose property that she wants to use are empty nesters and they have a traveling ministry, so they're not around very much.
So they're gonna sell their house in a year and she's gonna have new neighbors, and then the new neighbors are gonna say no.
Is it
Maybe.
reasonable? I asked her if she had, because she's gonna want liability insurance for the time that she has people on the property that she doesn't own.
She said she.
Did we ask her for documentation?
She said she has them named as individual insurance, so that shouldn't be that shouldn't be a problem, I don't. Yeah, well, I know.
I think if you think that's relevant to one of the you should take a look at the special use permit code, and if you think that is relevant to your assessment, sure. I don't think insurance protects people from danger. I think it could make people whole if they suffer an injury, right? I don't know that that solves the.
You see, like the
the
situation,
practical
here's
issue.
people that are never gonna be around, she's using the property, somebody falls off a horse.
Yeah, I don't like it. Well, that's why I was saying the same thing, like, you can't just show up with some piece of paper that you scanned in with one of the owner's names on it. I mean, if someone was to get hurt on that property.
We
It's
approved the same
seriously
thing with the
injured. I mean,
restaurant.
the town doesn't want to be liable for that either. They
So I'm talking
don't want
about,
somebody to come back and say, what do you mean? Who wrote this letter? I never wrote that letter. I never gave her permission.
I'm just thinking if it would be prudent for us to require insurance documentation. I mean, we're talking about horseback riding. People have been hurt horseback riding.
Yes, Christopher Reeves.
Another item is additionally insured, that we could ask her to provide.
Well, she said he did. She said that's what she's done.
The town listed as additional.
All the time. Well, I guess we have a lot to think about and,
Yeah, I
I
think.
mean, obviously this has been going on since before 2019, so.
Yeah. I think you, with respect to the insurance, I think. Consider whether that's an issue for this board, which is a land use board. Now, you're talking about liability to the owner. I think there are some land use decisions and statutes and things that, specifically call for insurance. I don't think your Stables and Riding Academy one does.
I would think at the very least that the owner of the property should be able to view the policy that she's trying to sell them and sign off. Say,
Well, I guess that's what they do. I mean, that's like their business, that's like like they actually have a business agreement. And that's how their business agreement works. I mean, that really isn't
I
for
just
us
hate
to
to see
say.
the town of Mendon get thrown under the bus because if
Well, I don't think we will, because if we have that, lease. A signed and notarized lease. With everyone's signature on it. Then that exonerates us from any liability, or it should.
I wouldn't make a legal conclusion like that, but I think what you're trying to say is, if you have the lease, then you have, what you're looking for is the consent for them to use the
Yes.
property for riding stables. If That's what you're concerned about. That would be a good way to show that, I think.
Right. But if they didn't have a lease and they didn't show it to us, and we just were like, oh, okay, yeah, your neighbor said it was okay, that's fine. Then if someone got hurt, they might be able, I would be afraid that they might be able to go back to town and say, you know, why did you do that? We never gave permission for her to be riding.
I think, again, I'm gonna redirect you and say, the code has specific things you're supposed to look at: character of the neighborhood, public safety, health and welfare of the public, how land coverage, density, traffic, noise, garbage disposal, utilities, all parking.
Ingress,
Ingress, there's all kinds of stuff in the code. That's what you want to, you want to make sure the concerns you have are relevant to the land use board's concerns.
What about this for safety? Say they're out there shooting and she's got a rider on a horse, and the horse gets spooked because they hear the shotgun go off or whatever. And then the horse takes off. I mean, these are all like, horses can get spooked like that.
I don't know, I'm not a horse or a.
We don't.
Yeah, it just seems to me there's just so many liability issues here that. Anyway, I'll shut up.
Yeah.
And the other thing you can do is you can ask the applicant all these questions about the horses and the safety concerns and move on, keep going from there.
Just because she's coming back, again, doesn't mean we have to approve her again. We can, get more information and we can still think it through and then, take our time. And certainly,
Move to adjourn.
Oh, God,
Yes,
yes,
please.
I've been trying to do that. Yes, who wants to make a motion that we adjourn? Me?
I mean,
Second? Charlie, all in favor?